Guy Drummond, a Montrealer, already a millionaire at 26, a member of the best clubs and a friend of the British Prime Minister. Guy rushes into a muddy beet field to rally a few surviving Algerians. With him is Edward Norsworthy, a dashing stockbroker used to gambling with his own and other people's money. Now, Norsworthy gambles his life, leading the Canadians and Algerians against the advancing German infantry.
Major Norsworthy sprang to the front and called out, "Come on, men! Remember that we are Canadians and all the eyes of Canada are upon us." And we all followed him with a wild cheer and advanced to the ditches along the road, facing the advancing Germans. The ditches gave us some little protection, and we stuck it there to the last man.
In 1919, when they were clearing these battlefields and taking all the remains into the military cemeteries, they came across a wooden cross that said "2 unknown officers of the Royal Highlanders of Canada," and they dug them up, and they found a femur of one of them was so large that it had to be an enormous man, and Drummond was about 6'3", so they could actually identify that it was Guy Drummond, and they knew that Norsworthy had been buried with him. So the two of those men were taken to Tyncott Cemetery and reburied and identified.
Further south, Major William King rushes his 3 18-pounder field guns into an orchard just behind the Saint-Julien road. He opens fire, sending deadly shrapnel shells that explode over the German troops. At dusk, the Germans charge King's battery, but a 19-year-old school cadet, Fred Fisher, brings a machine gun forward to cover King's retreat. With all 4 of his crew dead, Fisher pushes the gun further forward and keeps firing.
Even Fisher himself was killed later on, although he was awarded a Victoria Cross for his action. I don't think I certainly would have run away. These were inexperienced troops. They had never seen anything like this, and they made an immediate decision to stand and fight, which is really quite incredible when you think about it, because the odds were totally stacked against them. They were proud of their heritage. They'd been raised on the stories of the British Empire, of Kipling, and a good Englishman didn't run. And they considered themselves to be good citizens of the Empire.
North of Ypres, attacked with Canadian artillery battery, the brilliant doctor, 42-year-old John McCrae. One surgeon described the scene as McCrae and the other surgeons struggled to keep up.
There are wounds here, wounds there, wounds everywhere. Legs, feet, hands missing. Faces horribly mutilated. Bones shattered to pieces.
We're at John McCrae's dressing station. It was here on the night of the 22nd, when the attack was 5 or 6 hours old, that McCrae was tending to the wounded coming back from the front. This entire area was chaotic. There was Belgian refugees trying to get out of the fighting. There was troops going to the front. There was artillery. This entire situation was completely out of control. Well, we're right inside McCrae's dressing station. He operated here for more than 2 weeks, and I don't know how many hundreds of men he would have treated. Many of them would have been gas cases. The suffering of the men affected him deeply, and throughout the war, he never forgot this experience. But the one that got him the most was on May the 1st, 1915, when his good friend Alexis Helmer was hit by a German long-range shell.
The shell had blown Alexis Helmer to pieces. His gunners collected the remains, placed them in sandbags, put these in a blanket, and pinned the blanket together, trying to give it something approximating a human shape. While the guns of the battery fired without ceasing, John McCrae recited the Anglican service from memory. It was night. Even a candle would draw German artillery fire. Alexis Helmer was buried in darkness.
This is Essex Farm Cemetery. It was established during the Second Battle of Ypres, and the original burials were for those soldiers who died on the way to the front or died at the dressing station. It was overlooking these fresh graves that McCrae wrote in Flanders Fields.
In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row that mark our place. And in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
That very night, the Canadians prepared to pick up McCrae's torch and make a desperate counterattack against the advancing Germans. As night deepens on April the 22nd, the German attack draws closer to Ypres. The big guns batter the city. Fires spread. People flee in panic. Ypres is about to fall, and Canon Frederick Scott looks on in horror.
I said to myself, has old England lost the war after all? My mouth became suddenly dry as though filled with ashes. That was one of the most awful moments in my life. Some men came marching up the canal. I called out, "Where are you going, boys?" The reply came glad and cheerful. "We're going to reinforce the line, sir. The Germans have broken through." "That's all right, boys," I said. "Play the game. I will go with you."
This area had been broken open completely on the 22nd, and all through the ridges ahead of us, there was German troops digging in and moving in and taking advantage of the gap created by the French colonial troops. There were still some Canadian reserves, and that's what happened here. They brought forward 2 battalions of Canadian reserves to go and take the Germans and capture Kitchener's Wood. On the night of April 22nd, 1915, the situation was desperate, and the High Command knew that they had to seal the gap the Germans had created, or Ypres would be lost. They ordered all available men forward to the attack, and in this field they ordered 2 Canadian battalions, the 10th from Alberta and the 16th Canadian Scottish, to come to this field and capture Kitchener's Wood. And really they didn't even know where Kitchener's Wood was.
The German commanders order their troops to dig in for the night at Kitchener's Wood and prepare for the final assault the next day. The Germans do not know that nothing stands between them and Ypres. Just a few thousand Canadians.
They were actually given an impossible task. They had never seen the positions. It was a night attack. They had never been in battle. They had actually no opportunity at all for success. They had no chance for success. That's why their feat that night is actually so remarkable.
An officer came down and told us that the Germans were in the wood, which we could see before us at some distance in the moonlight. I passed down the line and told the men, "It's a great day for Canada, boys." Those words afterwards became a watchword, for the men said that whenever I told them that, it meant that half of them were going to be killed.
Well, they marched for about half of the way. The Germans, for some reason, didn't pick up on them, and we're talking about 1,600 men. Then all of a sudden, one flare came up from the wood, and then a dozen more, and it was lit up like day, and the Germans opened fire.
Men on each side of me were crying out in pain, and still we went on. I personally felt I must surely be hit. The hail of bullets was so thick. The cracking of the bullets close to the ears made them sing, and it was impossible to make oneself heard even to one's nearest neighbor.
The struggle became a dreadful hand-to-hand conflict. We fought in clumps and batches, and the living struggled over the bodies of the dead and dying. The clashing bayonets flashed like quicksilver in the moonlight.